So Jennifer, we are in Being in Tune.
Hi, so we have with us as our special guest, and I'm saying special because we're also excited to hear. Oh, we have Onika Henry, and Onika is a sexologist and a sex educator of O. Henry Consultancy. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to sharing.
Great.
Great. So Terry Ann, I would leave you on this section to chat with Onika, and I will come back in for the questions.
See you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Onika, as Jennifer said, it's really a pleasure having you on board. And we think it's so very important in this section, which we call Being in Tune, that we really come to grips with our sexual selves, our sexuality, our gender, whatever it is. And especially for our cohort. I think our generation is one that has not been as free and has some trouble with the translation. So firstly, let me ask you, what is a sexologist? And why would our cohort need to come to you? Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the term sexologist. It's a very broad umbrella term that describes anyone who studies human sexual behavior. And under that broad term, we have persons who will specialize in certain aspects of that study. So there are the sex researchers, and they would study human sexual behavior. And then you have the sex educators, and those are trained to develop curriculum, to do lesson plans, to present training workshops, etc. And then you have those who are clinical sexologists, meaning that they work with persons, individuals or couples one-on-one to help them resolve their sexual issues. And under that term of clinical sexologists, you have those who are sex coaches, those who are sex counselors, and those who are sex therapists. So, you know, they would work with clients in slightly different ways, hence the different. That's basically what the term is about. And well, I'm actually in my office today.
Yes, a beautiful office. I love your colors.
Thank you. And when people come to see me here, they come to talk about what part of their sexual health they are not satisfied with, what parts they find that they have challenges or blockages with, or even if they have trauma, or if they are trying to deal with issues that are actually painful when it comes to sexual intercourse. And so my work looks like any other helping professional. So you would go into a psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor or therapist office or social worker.
Yeah.
And you sit and you chat with them and you talk about your issues, and they give you insights. They use particular methodologies, particular kinds of ways of interacting with you to help you think differently and therefore behave differently, tips and techniques, etc. That is one of the ways in which I work. I'm also trained and training as what we call a somatic sex educator, which is body-based sex education. So that means that I
am learning.
And so that means that I go beyond the talk. And when I say that I go beyond the talk, we do exercises with their bodies. I teach breathing exercises, different types of yoga and yoga stretches. And I do particular kinds of touch that help to relieve and release trauma that is trapped in the body. And I also teach about consent and boundaries and how to negotiate with a partner the kinds of sexual activities that you want. And so that may begin to answer the question, why would someone in your cohort want to or need to come see me?
Yes.
I'll go a little bit into detail and be specific about this particular developmental stage in life. We find older, if we used to enjoy a particular way of having sex, that may change because our bodies change. And as our bodies change, they're going to function differently. So relearning our bodies, particularly for women, when we are going through perimenopause and menopause, that aspect of our life, meaning the sexual part of our life, may be a little bit more challenging. And so learning how to navigate and relearn our bodies and how sex is different going through that period and after that period is something that I also help with. And also work with men as they get older, of course, learning how to manage their changing bodies. Erections may be different. Things like arthritis and other kinds of health issues may come into play and affect how our bodies function. And if we're on certain kinds of medications, that also affects how our body functions. So learning how to navigate all those issues as we get older is something that I help people with so that they can maintain a very important and vital part of their humanness.
Yes, being fully in tune. And, you know, as Jen and I continue with our work, we really are encouraging our cohort to live their best life. You know, we say on the second act, you're focused on so many things external to yourself, whether it's career, whether it's raising children, whether it's parents. And now in these years, when we are hoping that a lot of those responsibilities have shed, we can now come back to look at ourselves. And we are saying that that intimacy with yourself and with a key partner is probably the foundation of intimacy with everyone else. And, you know, there are so many issues that we just not comfortable talking about. From our body parts, we don't know what it looks like. So when you think of us going on to this third act stage that we have to design for ourselves, and we're writing our own script, let's talk about the things that we need to be aware of that could block us. How we get over those obstacles. I'm not calling them taboos. Obstacles.
Yes.
What are the issues that we need to deal with?
Right. So yeah, I would refer to them as challenges or blocks or obstacles. So yes, I like that too. Okay, so when someone comes to me for an issue and I do an assessment, I assess people in 5 areas of their sexuality, because sex is way, way, way more than the body. It's way more than genital behavior.
Yeah.
And so I ask questions and I assess the mind and the mental aspect of sex. And so the blockages and challenges that may exist in that area, it would include, what are your beliefs? What are your attitudes about sex and about sex and aging? What are your beliefs and attitudes about what's appropriate, quote unquote, at your age? And talk about those. Are there any residual or leftover messages that you've lived with all your life? And you're now questioning those messages and those beliefs, whether you got them from society or from religion, or simply from having some really bad experiences in your life. So we assess the mental aspect of your sexuality. And then there's the emotional aspect. Are you carrying any baggage? Do you have issues with trust? Are you able to be intimate? And when I would use the word intimate, or at least when I use it, I like to break it down and play with the term intimacy. So are you letting each other see into each other and see who you really are? And are you able to be open, honest, and vulnerable with a partner and still feel grounded and still feel safe, secure, and loved? You know, so do you have that kind of intimacy? Are you still carrying any fear, shame, or guilt? We call that, some of us call that the unholy trinity, because those 3 emotions tend to come together.
Yes.
Fear, guilt, you know, and are you still working through fear, shame, and guilt when it comes to your sexuality? And then we talk about what usually people come to see me about, because that's the most obvious, and that's the body-based or physical issues that are coming up as you're getting older. And so for women, as we get older and our hormonal landscape changes, we may find we have issues with vaginal dryness, with being aroused, with being in the mood, or being able to experience orgasms. And so dealing with how do we now change our diet? What do we now have to do physically to rebalance the body, to begin to rebalance the hormones, and prepare the body for that other developmental stage. What do you do in the meet while you're working through that?
Yeah.
practical steps and tips to take when dealing with those kinds of issues. Of course, if we're also dealing with other physical issues like having diabetes, what that does to the body, especially for men, it affects men's ability to have or maintain really good erections. And how do you deal with that? What are the practical tips for managing that? And of course, if you have physical pain from maybe arthritis, what are the best ways or most comfortable ways to find new positions that will not have your body in pain or will not have you feeling any discomfort? And so those are the kind of things that may come up. And something that we don't often talk about because our doctors or our medical system doesn't really address it is how do we work with medications that may be interfering with our sexual function?
Okay.
Able to have that discussion with your doctor and perhaps finding an alternative to the medications that you're on that may be affecting your sexual desire and your sexual function. And then we talk about energy. Energy in terms of what's your fitness level like? Are you able to engage in certain kinds of sexual activity? And also energy in terms of, are you able to sense and feel and tap into the sexual energy in your body and be able to move that energy, use that energy for a sense of well-being? And then we also talk about the spiritual aspect of sex. And I would ask questions about what is the role of sex in your life? How is sex important to you? Beyond the physical, what is the bigger picture? And how can your sexual and erotic energy and that part of your life connect you closer to yourself, connect you closer to a partner? And for some people, even give you a greater connection or a sense of being part of life. Does it connect you with the divine? Do you see it as sacred energy? Do you see the act as a act that is ritualistic and can also be spiritual? And what does that mean? And how does that impact the way that you interact daily with life and with others? And so that's the way we assess, and then we decide based on that assessment where the blocks and challenges are and what kind of action plan do we put to get over those blocks and those challenges. I hope that answers the question.
No, it does, because one of the things, when people hear, all right, you hold the issue of your sexuality, or you as a sexual human being, most people go straight to the act of sex and not understand that it is such who you are, whether you say it's my gender, my femininity, my masculinity, there is a natural attraction. And by here, I'm by no means taking out same-sex relationships at all. Most people, because they focus so much on that ultimate act, they forget how important we as human beings, we as animals are in terms of completing ourselves. And one of the things Jan and I try to do, and we think it is so important for success in the third act. I mean, we're saying now, live on our terms. Find our passion and pursue it, because now you're not committed to, I have to earn an income, I have to send the children to school. Now you can truly look at yourself and say, what makes me happy? And I believe there's a very direct relationship between who I am sensually and sexually with being happy. And for our cohort, I think we may not give ourselves permission to do it. And I am assuming that you're the doctor that we need to go to fix this.
I'm not a doctor, not yet.
I use the word doctor in the sense of where do I go to fix this? Is that correct?
Understood. And you know what you said that was so important, and actually, how do I say that? So you use the word permission. And one of the models that we use when we are putting together an action plan for somebody is called the implicit model. And that P, the very first step in that process, is permission giving.
Yeah.
So before we get into the limited information and the specific suggestions and the intense therapy and the intense coaching, which is what the other letters stand for, we start with P, we start with that permission giving and letting people know it is okay. This is your birthright. This is part of how you were designed, and all permission granted to explore this in ways that are at a pace that's easy for you, in a way that is gentle for you, in a way that's affirming for you. So permission is key.
Okay, well, one of the things that the CONEC-TIONS 50 plus 5.8G Alive cohort assumes is that we give ourselves permission to live, to be happy. Hence, we can have this discussion. So, to a person who cannot, will not give themselves permission and therefore really enjoy what is available to them in this, what we think is the best years of our lives.
Right, and so I would do the same kind of assessment. I'm going to ask, what is holding you back? What are your thoughts and your beliefs that are holding you back? What are your fears? What do you think are the negative consequences that you may encounter that may seem so overwhelming or so frightening or so inappropriate that you're not allowing yourself that permission? And then really break down and analyze whether those fears, those beliefs, those attitudes are realistic. Analyzing whether they are really what you believe they are.
Great.
Perhaps just offering a less intense way of exploring sexuality by offering them or suggesting that start by simply exploring pleasure.
Yeah.
Really pleasure. Start with,
which is not a bad word. Yeah.
Just start with exploring your senses and your sensuality. Checking in with your body, understanding the wisdom of the body, and perhaps playing around and exploring with the idea that we like to share about pleasure and sex. Pleasure is medicine and sex is medicine. And it's medicine not just for healing, it's also preventative medicine.
Onika, I think you've set our being in tune context so well, and you've highlighted the points that our cohort really needs to pay attention to. We are ready to help build and design the script for that stage. So I want to give you an opportunity to just let our viewers know, for those of you who may be curious, how do they contact you? Because we are talking to people across the Caribbean. Do you do sessions virtually?
Yes, and so the interesting thing is my training from the get-go was virtual. So I've always been offering persons the opportunity or the choice or the option of working with me online.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, so you can find me, well, first of all, you can find me on Facebook. So my O. Henry Consultancy Services, I have a Facebook page on which I share some of the work that I do. And my contacts are there on that page. And so you will find there my phone contact. You can WhatsApp me and we can continue to communicate from there. So 1-8868, I'll try to go 381-3049. So 381-3049. I have a website, easy to find, it's my name. So onikahenry.com.
Okay.
Also email me, ohenrybusiness@gmail.com.
All right. So viewers, we have to be in tune. And part of it, we bring people into the 5.8G Alive tribe to help you get there. So Onika's contacts are on, and we are stepping out. This is the end of being in tune.